As we're in the middle of a series at Bayside about never settling, something interesting happens in the life of Moses when God speaks to him in Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. God tells Abram to go from his country. At this time in our passage, Abram is living in a place called Haron. His country was a place that was familiar to him, comfortable to him, secure to him, and he had a personal history there. And God is telling him to leave his country to go to a place that he would show him. In all of our lives, many times we settle for what's familiar, what's comfortable, what's secure, and where we have a personal history. But what I've found is if you're never going to settle, it means you're going to have to be uncomfortable. Abram was familiar with Haran. It was his place of comfort. But he had to leave and go to a place that God would show him. As a matter of fact, he had settled in Haran as he had left his original place called Ur of the Chaldeans. And he's supposed to go all the way to Canaan, but he settles in Haran. Why? Because it was comfortable. This is the equivalent of you and I being told to leave Sacramento and God saying, I want you to go to San Diego because that is the place that I have a blessing for you and I want you to go there. And if you've been to San Diego, you understand that the blessing of God is there. But rather than going to San Diego, you and I stop in Modesto. Now, what kind of sense would that make? None at all, because the blessing is in San Diego. But we're familiar with Modesto. We're familiar with Sacramento. We don't know anything about the place where we're going. Listen, if you are never going to settle in life, it means you have to leave your comfort zone. I know a little something about this. 5 years ago, I left Atlanta to come to California, knew nothing about California at all. And while I was trying to make that decision, I said to a friend of mine, hey, I don't want to leave Atlanta. I'm comfortable here. And she looked at me and she said this sentence that I'll never forget. She said, Jason, comfort zones kill dreams. Listen, comfort zones prevent us from living the life that God has for us. God calls us to do different things in life that calls us to have faith, and it's not always comfortable. Following Jesus isn't comfortable. Why? Because loving your neighbors isn't comfortable. Obeying God isn't comfortable. Making your marriage work isn't comfortable. Living on a budget isn't comfortable. Pursuing a degree isn't always comfortable. Working towards your fitness goals, oh Lord, that's not comfortable at all. But do not settle just because it's uncomfortable. God will give you the grace required in order for you to deal with the uncomfortable moments in life. You need biblical proof? There's a guy by the name of Paul, who he has something called a thorn in the flesh. We aren't told if this thorn in the flesh was some sin or some disability that he has. We aren't told exactly what it is. But God says to Paul, I'm not going to take the thorn away from you. In other words, I'm not going to get rid of the thing that's uncomfortable. But then he says these words, but my grace is sufficient for you. When God calls us to places that are uncomfortable, he gives us grace to comfort us in what's uncomfortable. Whatever you've been saying no to God about, because it's uncomfortable, say yes, and he will give you the grace you need to never settle. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day.